All right, that was a 2-hour conversation. It was a pretty good conversation. One of the topics came up was, if you say everything's a pattern, what about the people who say chaos theory or whatever? And chaos theory, to me, has to burn up. Some people don't believe that. They think patterns are just a piece of the chaos, but I don't believe that. I believe that anybody with a chaotic mind or anything with chaos would not flow, would not work. And there was more discussed there. We weren't arguing. And I told them, they said, you might disagree. I said, well, I'm not going to disagree with anybody or say anybody's wrong. I'm just telling you my perspective. Everybody has a piece of the pie, you know. I think it got rid of my depression, just being able to try to hear from somebody else's perspective helps you get out of your own circumstance or whatever. The interaction with some people who have a brain is awful strange down here. It's awful rare, I mean. And so most of the time people aren't even thinking anything deep, you know. But to me, everything down here has to be a pattern. And the chaos theory, to me, is like demonic, and it has to burn up. Hath God said, you'll be your own God. That's chaos to me. That's a fake reality bubble. That's not even real. But that was worth it. At first, I was hesitant, but I'm glad that I made that effort. It's pretty amazing stuff. Pretty wild. I really can't think chaos. The only reason I would see chaos as the sine wave, demonic system, the machine, the material realm, to me the chaos is to create a pattern. If you throw anything down, you break a piece of glass, it creates a pattern in the glass. You throw ice on the floor, it creates a pattern. Throwing dice, everything's a pattern. It's like 60-40, heads or tails. If you throw enough dice, you're going to get a pattern of 60-40, you know. A pattern always has to arise. The randomness, the random generator in itself, somewhere down the line has to have a pattern. It has to have a pattern. I do not think in chaos. I actually hate chaos. That's kind of why I'm divorced, because I don't like chaos. Somebody bringing chaos into your world, to me, is ridiculous. This is why a lot of people that you see online, the women are attacking the men are attacking women. It's not really that. They're really not in unity scripturally. If you take the Bible and rightly divide it, you're going to move from a chaotic mind to a rightly divided mind, and you're going to be in peace and love and joy and truth, and it's actually going to protect you. The Bible's actually going to protect you from the witches, the warlocks, the chaos, the trouble. It's going to protect you. It's going to protect you. Have you ever noticed when the devil tries to throw chaos into your life, that it eventually calms down back into peace? And the lesson that you learn through that chaos, you've learned there's no new game, and then you move into patterns of peace. When you're young, you have chaos. You're going to the bars, or you're speeding down the highway, and you're dating a bunch of different people. I never tried to do that because I just thought one person should be enough, you know. I don't know why people have 2 or 3 people they're dealing with. But anyway, that conversation took me out of my depression, and I knew it was going to be beneficial, but I didn't know it'd be that beneficial, because you actually have people can think and not argue. They can have a different opinion, but they're not going to fight about it. That's the way it should be. But if somebody's really honest in their inner man, like a lot of people, and I actually posted on my community tab where there's a lot of people they can decode, but they end up thinking they're God. And I told them in that little meeting I just had that I told them that you can be a regular natural farmer. You can plant some tomatoes and tomato seeds, you got tomatoes. But you can also be a spiritual farmer, plant spiritual seeds and get a harvest. Doesn't mean you're God, but I posted people on my community that they could decode and see some deep stuff, but they end up thinking they're gods. This one lady, she thinks she's a goddess. She thinks she's God. She'll say you can enter into God mode. Well, only God is in God mode. God can stop you in your tracks, and He can make you sick. He can shut you down. God will humble you. But if they keep going after the devil's lie, the Genesis 3 devil's lie, they're going to be down a path that He lets them have that path. If they want lies, they want chaos, they want trouble, they'll end up there. Like the witches, all the witches, if you look at all of them, over time, they end up by themselves. They end up with a cat, 2 or 3 cats, 20 cats. Some of them end up with 20 cats. They run around with these different men and probably different women, and they've destroyed their mind. They destroyed their heart. Whoredom wine and new wine take away the heart. They usually get onto some kind of drug or drinking, and they end up into chaos theory or sex magic or whatever they do, and they end up destroying their own life and the children. And usually what happens is one of the children gets saved. When a woman goes into sorcery, or the man, the children get hurt, but eventually one of them gets saved, probably, usually, depends. Because they see because think about it, the child is looking at the chaos all around them and the insanity that's going on in that family, and the kid is saying, hey, I got to get out of here, this is not right. And so they were looking for truth. That's what happened to me. I've been looking for truth my whole life. And the truth always goes back to Scripture. And everything makes sense. There's a type and an anti-type. And everything is a pattern. And the patterns must happen because the Pa, God the Father, is the pattern. And you see Jesus, the image of the Godhead bodily, and see man made in His image. And so the only thing I can conclude with chaos theory that it's got to burn up, because that's what hell is. And the chaotic heart and the chaotic mind has to burn up and burn forever. And that's all I can say about it. And I told him, I said, I got a math degree, and I've thought about chaos theory at some point in my life, but now I'm to the point that everything is a pattern after the Pa, and everything is a fractal. This is why, as above, so below, as within, so without. It all is a pattern. It's all connected. Otherwise, nothing would function right. You cannot have chaos and have stability. And all these people that are trying to bring chaos to the world, they just hate authority. They hate stability. They want to get in power. They're trying to bring chaos so they can bring power. But no matter what chaos that you create, notice that all the nations start back and do the same thing they had before. There's always this group of leaders, and it's usually narcissistic leaders. And the narcissistic leaders all have the same pattern. All narcissists have the same pattern. All psychopaths have the same pattern. If I want to sweep a floor at one building or this, I use the same kind of broom and I use the same kind of pattern, or you use a vacuum cleaner or whatever. Everything's a pattern. And to think outside of patterns is impossible for me. I don't think that way. I understand what they're saying, but it logically breaks down, because logic goes back to the logos. Logos is the word. Jesus is the logos. And so everything is logical. That's why I enjoyed math. Now I enjoy the language. To me, math is just a little piece of the pie. The language is everything. The symbols and the shapes and the language is everything. Otherwise, if you couldn't really put a holographic truth on everything from different perspectives, you couldn't know anything. And so, I'm not mad, and I'm not saying he believed that way, and she didn't believe that way. They were just throwing that out there because they got their own little framework that they're working on. Both of them together are thinking about a podcast, and, it's pretty interesting. But eventually, all roads lead back to not Rome, but to Christ. And so every road that they say leads back to Rome, that's a lie. I don't care what path you take, what little piece of the pie you take, it always leads back to Christ. That's why you see Christ consciousness and all that stuff that they talk about. They're not saved, but they still come back to Christ consciousness. How is that possible? Because Jesus is the source. Jesus is the source. And everything flows from him, through him, and to him. And that meeting was probably them trying to hear a framework, because I told them it took me a while to build my framework. It took 12 years to build my framework, but I looked at all the gematria and the scenes and the gurus and I looked at all the religions before that. So I've looked at all the different religions and denominations. I've looked at all the different esoteric views, and I had to create my own framework. But I found the common denominators and everything. I always use my scripture as my balance or my litmus test, and I came up with my own framework. And you can't build anything without a pattern. Even people try to build stuff without the cross being in the pattern, but the word pattern goes back to God the Father. So everything is a pattern, which points back to God the Father. And Jesus is the image of the Godhead bodily. And everything is a ship. Everything has a head. And the woman who doesn't want a head, she wants to be the spider. And she has to if the woman doesn't have a head, she has to become the spider or the queen bee ant, and has to have a bunch of worker bees or weave a web where she strangles out the other prey to survive. But instead of a win-lose situation, we should have a win-win. And so if it's not a win-win, you need to run, because it becomes chaos. And the chaos theory is rebellion against God. That's my theory. The conversation wasn't just about chaos. There was a 2-hour conversation, but towards the end it went to the chaos theory. But my conclusion of the chaos theory is demonic, and it will be burned up in hell. The devil and his angels will be burned. There's ordinance, orderly, and there should be order in the home, order on a job, order in your heart, order in your mind, order in your thinking. And so having that conversation took me out of depression. But now I'm going to go get some sleep, because I know that's part of it. But getting woke up with some negative news at 1 o'clock in the morning, that threw me into like a depressive state. But I think I'm back. I'll see. We'll see tomorrow. But even that, though, I know it's all a cycle. And it usually takes me a few days to to digest the new information. And what I'll do is, like, somebody says something, if there's a rift between people or something, you look back and you look back over previous experiences, other patterns, other cycles, and you say, oh, how long did it take me to get over this or that or whatever? And you say, okay, it usually takes, if I keep working, if I keep focusing on this or doing this, then, oh, it'll just go away. It's better to know the truth than not know the truth. It's better to fight, create some chaos, so it creates a new pattern. So that's kind of what I needed. When something is chaotic in your life, it's like a trauma, right? But that chaos actually creates a pattern. And if it's not leading you to a healthy pattern, then you need to regroup, because all problems or chaos or trouble or division or separation or whatever should bring you back to oneness in some way, shape, or form. Even if you never talk to a person ever again, you still have that pattern of chaos to unity, flesh to spirit. It all makes sense now. So that's actually what I needed to hear. If somebody has chaos theory, the only reason, think about this, the only reason a person can have chaos theory, even think about chaos theory, is because they have a logical mind. Otherwise, they couldn't even think about it. That's like an oxymoron. That's crazy. Chaos theory. The only thing chaotic is the human. Everything else is orderly.